There doesn't seem to be a lot of talk about rep ranges in the fitness industry, and a lot of people I think brush it off with just saying, well, bro, it doesn't matter. But does it really not? We do have some scientific paper that says that anywhere between 5 and 30 reps it should be fine as long as intensity remains the same. But certain rep ranges just make more sense for certain exercises. And it's also a good idea to play a little bit around with rep ranges when you're injured. But let's begin with the fact that 5 to 30 is a very broad range. And what this says is it should be hypertrophically the same as long as intensity is equated. Intensity won't be equated. I guarantee you, if we get your average gym bro who always trains to failure and we make him train to failure, for an example, on curls for 30 reps, he's not going to actually train to failure. Because the higher the reps are, first of all, the tougher it's going to be to feel where it is at, or even just go to that point, because it's much more intense when it comes to willpower. I've tried training with every rep range before, between 5 and 30, and Incorporated says they would go between 20 and 30 reps, and let me tell you, there's a reason why I don't do them anymore. It's because it's literally impossible to go to failure. So personally, I never go above 20 reps, and even 20 reps, I only go up to 20 reps on calls because higher reps seem to work better for calves. But besides that, the max I will ever go on any other exercise is 15. Now let's get into when to use which types of rep ranges. The first thing is that some exercises simply aren't made for very low rep ranges. For an example, a lateral raise. You wouldn't do 5 reps with a lateral raise, right? Because it would feel like shit and it just doesn't work well. Even 8 reps feel pretty awkward unless you're a complete beginner. So with exercises like this, it's a good idea to use higher rep ranges. Personally, I use a 10 to 15 when it comes to lateral raises. And if I would have to think about other lifts like that, I probably wouldn't do a Powell raise with very low reps either. A bicep curl is a little bit more compatible with lower reps, but not that much. So I wouldn't do like 5 reps on bicep curls. Now we got the reverse of this. Some exercises don't work well with high reps. So doing a 15 to 20 on the bench press is a very stupid idea because your technique will just completely fall apart. Since it's a relatively big compound lift, when it comes to squats, your lungs will give out. Even if you have good work capacity, 20 rep squats are gonna fuck you, and not in a good way. Now, therefore, a lot of people seem to be training squats in like only 5 by 5, maybe doing like, some people do like a 3 to 5, even if they're training for hypertrophy. And while that is also effective, I do have the experience that high reps on squats do work. Not very high reps, so doing anything like 15 reps is probably gonna kill your lungs. But I built a lot of my leg gains with 12 rep squats. But personally, with squats, I wouldn't go anywhere above that. Also, when it comes to deadlifts, bro, would you do a 12 rep deadlift? Fuck no. Would you do a 20 rep deadlift? Fuck no, bro. Don't do the shit. Deadlift is also a very fatiguing movement, so doing low reps for it, it just simply makes more sense. And also because you're gonna be dead after like rep 8. The next category of exercises are exercises that focus on the weighted stretch. Now, using lower reps for these exercises simply make more sense because what you want is the weighted stretch. The lower the reps, the higher the weight that you can use, the bigger the weighted stretch. So if you're doing a JM press or power strokes, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to do a 15 to 20 because you're not going to be using any weight. I mean, you are, but not as much as you could. And so because of that, you're not getting as good of a weighted stretch as you could be. The next category is going to be dangerous exercises. No exercise is dangerous, we all know that, yeah. But I'm talking about stuff like neck training, for an example. I am not fucking gonna train necks with like 10 reps or something, because it just doesn't make sense. Now, is it dangerous? Not really, but the point is, if something happens, you're fucked. And so I like to be extra careful with that. So when it comes to neck training, I always do a 15 to 20. I never go below 15 reps because it's just simply not worth it. My neck is still growing like that. I don't really get anything out of going below 15 except for the higher chance of maybe breaking my neck and fucking dying. And the last thing is injuries. When it comes to injuries, generally what's recommended is high reps, and honestly that makes a lot of sense because the higher the reps that you use, the lower the weight. But sometimes it's actually the high reps that are really going to aggravate the injury even more, because you're gonna be like, you're doing 30 reps of the same thing and it's just generating more and more pain every single time, when maybe you could actually do a lot less reps and just be fine. So with this, I would rather encourage you to experiment and not just blindly follow some sort of guideline that you've heard. But generally, yeah, higher reps make a little bit more sense, just to be a bit more careful. Now, obviously, you shouldn't train on an injury, but when it comes to things like tricep tendonitis, those types of things very often don't ever go away for good. But rather, you have to learn how to not aggravate it and how to essentially work around it. So obviously, if you have an injury, don't continue training on that. If you have something milder that you know is healing, but you don't really want to make it worse, but you know that it's going to get better or just stagnate maybe, that doesn't really bother you much, high reps usually make more sense. Click here to watch my last video, and peace.